What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Plant Medicine for PTSD podcast. I am joined today, in addition to being joined by this stuffed elephant that maybe was in frame for the entire conversation. My daughter left her toys up here. I'm joined today by my new friend, David Romero, who, in addition to having an excellent first name, is doing some very interesting stuff and has done some very interesting stuff in his career. He retired as a captain of the Air Force, went into like medical industry sales in the orthopedic back pain world. At one point was teaching yoga philosophy at the university level, and now he's doing some interesting stuff with psychedelic integration and health and wellness coaching. I always get together with somebody prior to these podcasts in order to learn about them, learn about their background, and kind of map out what direction I'll take the interview. And we didn't talk about this at all when David and I met up previously. But earlier today, I was just looking through his Instagram, and I noticed that he has all of these yoga tattoos and like Sanskrit tattoos, and what I thought was a Ganesha tattoo on his shoulder. Cordy and I also have Ganesha tattoos on our arms. So I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. We got to talk about that. And turns out this dude was teaching yoga philosophy at a university. Like, I had no idea about any of this. Like, I talk about yoga philosophy all the time, and this guy knows way fucking more than I do. So this conversation was I think, super interesting. We got into a lot of neat topics, especially around autoimmune disorders. And I think I'll probably have him back on again to do a deep dive specifically into that. I really want to talk to his wife as well, who has had her own experiences dealing with and healing from autoimmune disorders. So if you guys have any questions specifically for David from this podcast, you can, of course, just get in touch with him or let me know, and we can have him on for a round two. So without any further ado, let's get into this episode. Thank you for being here. But dude, I wanted to start this off actually asking you just a little bit more about your background and kind of like upbringing and stuff like that, because you mentioned to me that your brother is a Navy SEAL. So I know that you have, the family experience of having someone being a soldier in the family. So yeah, I just want to hear a little bit more about your background and how you got into some of this stuff, especially because looking through your Instagram, it's clear that you're like deeply into yoga and like the sound healing stuff. Yeah. Like lots of photos of you with like harmoniums. Most people don't even know what a fucking harmonium is. So I'm just curious, like, how you got onto that path from wherever it is that you started.
Yeah, man, great question. Well, I grew up in a military family. So dad was a Navy diver. My stepfather was a data analyst. My mother was a drug and alcohol counselor, psychologist. And then my brother, she was in the Navy, and then my brother was a Navy SEAL. And I believe it was just sort of conditioned. It's like it was familiar, and it made sense for me to do and go down a route that was most familiar with me. I didn't really know much better at the time, and I'm grateful for my family. And my brother was already, when I was a freshman, he was a senior, so he had gotten out, was trying to find his way, and decided at the same time I went to the Air Force Academy, he ended up going to Navy SEAL training, and it was. I've always looked up to my brother, and he's inspired me in a lot of different ways. And of course, I had my career, but I also grew up playing a lot of music. I was more of an artsy kind of kid, which is interesting because the military academy is more of an engineering school. I wanted to study really humanities, and I loved art history, and I loved making music. Played piano, for many years growing up as a kid. And then it was one of those things that brought me a lot of peace. I could go into my own little world with it. And, that was a part of me that got lost for a little bit when I went to the academy, just because there's not as much access to that, or I would have to go out of my way. And so that, plus studying, plus I was a competitive athlete, NCAA Division I runner, trying to make time for all the things that brought me peace. I didn't have like a really great school life, work life type balance. And it really wasn't until about 2014 when I started down my own yoga practice, and then I had started leading yoga retreats, and I brought this lady in gosh, I forget her first name, but her last name was Ford. She owned a sound studio in Eagle Rock, California. And I invited her in, and she brought all of these gongs and all of these cool instruments. And I was like, oh, this is sick. I want to do this. Like, why have someone come in and do this when I could do it myself? And then I did my first ayahuasca ceremony, and it was very, very clear to me that, and for those listening, this is probably going to sound very strange or woo, but it became very clear to me everything was vibration, and that working with sound and music, you could move energy, so to speak, or you could move what we call energy, and help people relax and move them into a more relaxed state. So that's sort of a long answer.
No, that's perfect. And you just open like 17 different doorways to go through. And it's so funny. When my wife can't sleep, I start telling her science things, and it like puts her to sleep immediately. Because I started off college as a chemistry major, and I was always really interested in this stuff. So we've literally covered, electrical generators probably like 7 nights in a row, and she couldn't sleep. And, she retains 0% of it. But I don't know why, but yesterday I was telling her about the equation of like E equals MC squared, and how some people believe that like matter isn't real. It's just vibrating very slowly, slow enough that we can interact with it. And light is just the same thing vibrating faster. So, all right, let's go into the sound healing. What do you think that is? Like, how does that actually work? There's some really interesting shit that gets slightly conspiratorial when you start looking at like history of things, and how like cathedrals are built with this like sacred geometry encoded in them. And you can tell I go down weird rabbit holes and how they like destroyed all of the bells around the time of like World War I and stuff like this. So what is going on with sound healing? Because I think a lot of people, myself included for a while, had this image of it's just these fucking hippie girls banging gongs and crystal singing bowls and just like nonsense like this. So like, how do you think it actually works? What is it?
So that's a great question too. How I feel in this, we'll go down some rabbit holes on this one too. So I think one of the first healing instruments is our own voice, but we've gotten so disconnected from it. If you look back at, like, I'm talking Vedic scripture and things like that, going into more philosophical Hinduism or even yogic type practices, whatever our theological thoughts are on it, let's just suspend that and just look at the technology itself. Emoting, connecting to the sound in our voice, learning how to control our voices, learning how to hum, how to sing, how to hit different ranges. That all, if you're doing it correctly and you're utilizing the body, I feel, as an instrument, you can actually do a lot of healing with your own voice. Now, with that said, in more modern day terms, music is the one language that connects us all. You could listen to some African beats and all of a sudden just start going with it. You can go. I mean, you were just telling me about your daughter. Listening to some what was it? It was tech house. Yeah, like and music. Just like there's something in our systems that just immediately does that. I believe it's correlated to our heartbeat, because there is an instrument inside of us that is constantly keeping in tune, in rhythm, that keeps this organism going. So part of it, I think that drum beat, that percussion, actually goes along with what's taking place inside of us. And there's sort of a natural rhythm that happens with that, as well as to our mother's heartbeat as well, too, a sense of familiarity, because we lived there for 9 months before we were birthed into this world. Next, I feel we can start to get into... there's a lot of different types of instruments out there. I mean, if you look at string instruments, like the violins, it's an instrument that's played, generally speaking, on the left-hand side, close to the heart. And string instruments, when they say we're pulling on our heartstrings, there's something about the vibration of a string instrument, guitar playing, that just immediately stimulates our nervous system and moves it into a bit of a parasympathetic state of being. So I think that there's that. And of course there's horns. Horns and bells and gongs. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of new instruments constantly being invented to stimulate us. I think some of it can be a little bit, it's music, right? So it's meant to be played. I should not be the one to judge, music or anything like that. But I feel that music is a calling of the heart, and it speaks to us. And like I said, it's the one language that we all understand outside of silence, because silence is the other common language that we all speak, but sometimes we just don't want to tune into. Then you can get into like 432 hertz or like 420A, or you start to get in solfeggio frequencies and Fibonacci frequencies and sort of these golden rule designed harmonies, that binaural beats even. I think all of them are there to help us relax, and the intention behind playing is the importance of it. If we're just getting up there and just beating a drum, that's one thing, but if we're beating a drum to actually bring the group together, connect to our own hearts, and we're playing from the heart, then it's a completely different experience.
Okay. I thought you were going to stop there at disparaging those who could only beat drums, because I'm like, bro, that's the extent of my musical capacities right there.
No, man. I mean,
but
dude, I mean, my wife and I
can...
like in our downstairs, I mean, we have like well over 200 instruments, and we love we love playing, we love singing, we love harmonizing. There's an expression that comes from the heart out of us, and when we really treat the body as an instrument, that energy, so to speak, whatever it is at the soul level, I feel comes through the playing, through the music, and people feel it.
I love that, man, and it's something I want to cultivate more and more for our daughter. It's interesting because my father was a music teacher, and he was like a classically trained opera singer, and he was offered a position at Juilliard, which he turned down because he married his first wife and he had to like get a real job, it was back in the day. And he had a weird relationship with playing music though, because his father would almost force him to perform for like his dad's friends when my dad was a kid. He'd trot him out and have him play something on the piano or whatever. And so my dad's like a ridiculously talented musician who never really plays or sings anymore because he has all these like weird feelings about it. And so he was careful to never push it on us. So I grew up like never playing an instrument. And now like, I wish I could play piano so badly. I want to learn so badly how to play a flute. I think that the flute sounds so cool when you're in like a ceremony, or just like the Native American flutes. They're so cool. So it's our daughter's second birthday next week. I hope she doesn't listen to this. We'll spoil the surprise. But we got her a piano, like a little kid's piano. It's actually like really nice. So I'm super excited for that to come, because she loves when I have a drum that we use for the temescals. And so we'll just start banging on that, and she starts singing along with it, and like she'll bang the drum like in tune to us singing. So like you can tell she's interested in it.
That's amazing.
That was a tangent. Yeah, I think it's super cool that you have 200 instruments in your house. We've got like a drum. Well, now we will have a piano. So it's a start.
Yeah, it's just funny though, because it's like an addiction. You pick it up, and then it's just like the instrument speaks to you, or like you see where this can, because the goal is to create, like on a sound journey, is to create an ambiance, and it's to like, to a degree, to cause like a level of confusion, so the person's like feeling fully immersed in the environment they're in. If they're laying on their back, or if they're, in a ceremony, then they are feeling immersed in sounds coming from all around them. And so a lot of people think there's 8 people playing versus just 2 people playing, and and I think that that's the beauty of. It's sort of like a ventriloquist, how like a ventriloquist can throw their voice, and it's like just the magic behind playing in itself. You mentioned flutes. I love the flute. The flute, the didgeridoo, really any ocarinas, any wind instrument. There is such a beauty to learning to play it, because it's all about breath control and watching your swallowing, watching, when you have perturbations in your own thoughts, and how that affects, and how you really have to keep a quiet mind and play and practice regularly with that. And I mean, I love playing flutes. It's just like a transcendent experience. Same with didgeridoo too. It's just, you play for like 30 minutes at a time, just with a single breath, and you just get lost in it.
All right, I gotta buy a flute again. I picked one up when I was in Pucallpa, Peru, just like a cool one. I'm sure it wasn't like well made or anything like that. It was just sold to tourists, but it was cool. But I gave it away to somebody who would actually play it. So I gotta find another one. It's funny. My wife told me once she can always tell when I finish a Zoom call because I start
Oh
whistling.
yeah,
And I've never noticed that until like she told me, and now I do actually do it all the time. So maybe I got to start playing the
whistling's
flute.
great, man. That's one of the
So
best. That's one of the whistling. I love whistling. I think it's a sign of joy. It's a sign of peace. It's an outward expression of what's in your heart.
yeah, well, you made me feel really good about
Yeah,
whistling
man,
all
do
the
it
time
more.
because my wife made me self conscious about it. She's like, it's funny. She's like, I can tell exactly when you finish up with a client because you just start whistling from the office, and I'm like, I've never noticed, but you're she's
Oh man, I
completely
can't
right.
wait till after this call. You're gonna be
Um,
whistling.
100%, dude. So, all right, how did you get into yoga then? Because you got into the music because you were into it as a kid, and then somebody just brought the sound healing
hmm
stuff one time, and you're like, I can do that. But where did yoga enter the picture? Was that before you went into the Air Force? Was that after?
Um, Yoga actually started. My earliest memory of yoga was at Naval Air Station Pensacola in the library with my mother.
Hmm.
She was going to some yoga
Okay.
classes there because she was working with the Seabees and the Blue Angels, and she was a psychologist. And her way of learning to relax was through going to the library where they held free public yoga classes, and we would just do yoga on the ground. And it was a way of babysitting me too, and that was sort of my first introduction to it, but more taking it seriously. I was struggling a lot when I got out of the military because, as you know, military family is like a family. Sometimes it's dysfunctional, but it's still family. And I had gotten into a Fortune 500 company, which I was grateful for, selling medical devices. Um, but I was depressed and I was working a lot, and I thought that I was supposed to be a lot further, wanting to do things faster. As far as like, I was stressed about sales and hitting numbers and quotas and everything, so I started drinking. And at the time, I had a business partner who we would go out, we'd party as well too. And I started just not feeling good about myself. A lot of it was just chasing a dragon and trying to, escape versus deal with my feelings, deal with emotions. And that's a whole other piece that we can maybe unpack later and unravel. But I realized I'd been suppressing a lot throughout my life. And I had a woman who was going to an Equinox gym with me. Her name was Julie Trombetta, and she said, I think you'd really like yoga. I think it would help you." And there's a really awesome teacher. His name was Garth Hewitt. He's still a dear friend of mine. I was teaching a class, and I went to class, and dude, like opening up, you're like laying in shavasana, and I'm just like, when's this guy gonna shut up? Like, when are we gonna get moving? Like, why are we just laying here? Like, this is dumb. And then we start moving, and I'm like, okay, can we actually do something hard? And then he puts us into like a plank position and holds us there for like 3 minutes. So I was like, okay, it's on. And every other, I was the only guy in the class. There was like 25 women there, so it's like, I don't want to look like a little bitch here. Like, I gotta like, I gotta like look tough. And after that, I just felt so good. Like, I felt so good after class. And the women aside and everything, that's like, I think that's just a funny piece that I remember. But women aside, like, I really remember feeling good afterwards and felt challenged. And I felt like, okay, I this is a level of athleticism, but stretching, which I knew my body needed. And I felt good. And I could sweat. And it was pretty much on after that. After my first yoga class, I was hooked. There was no turning back.
Hmm. I believe I saw that you have a Ganesha tattoo on your
Yes.
shoulder. Is that Ganesha or is that a generic
No, it's a
elephant?
Ganesha. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
here. You
okay.
turn on some music. I'll sing to you.
So,
Yeah, it's a Ganesha.
how, uh, what level of like the yoga philosophy did you get into over the time? Because I'm sure you're familiar with the term Bhakti
Yes.
Yoga. There's this podcast that I used to religiously listen to called Wisdom of the
Yes.
Sages, Have you ever heard of that? This guy, Ray Compo,
Yes.
Raghunath is like
Yes.
his, yeah. Um, they're like, I consider them like my primary spiritual
Hmm.
teachers just from the
Hmm.
podcast. I actually have a copy of the Srimad Bhagavatam back
Okay.
there. I won like a set of all 26 books in like this
Wow.
giveaway. It's fucking crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. It's that blue one. That's book
Yes.
one out of like 26. But anyway, one of the things that he always talks about is how like yoga in the
Hmm.
West has become reduced to just the
Yeah.
stretching. And it's as if I invited you over to my house for like a feast and I served you like ketchup and
Right.
mustard. Like that's what we have reduced yoga down to, is like the condiment on top of everything else that it's supposed to
Yes.
be. So yeah, I figured you don't get a Ganesha tattoo just from going to yoga here and
No.
there. So I guess how did you get into that side of things? Almost like, I don't know if you'd call it esoteric or whatever, but
Sure.
like to me that's really what yoga is, because like I don't practice
Hmm.
yoga. I don't go to yoga classes
Hmm.
ever, but I read the Bhagavad Gita almost every
Yeah.
day. I listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam almost every
Amazing.
day. So like on that front, I guess I am like a yogi. Our company is literally called Becoming
Right.
Om, right? Because it's like that primordial sound
Yes.
Om. So practicing it in that degree, I just don't do the fucking stretches because I just don't really like that kind of style of exercise. So this is a very long-winded way of saying, how did you get into that sort of philosophical side of things, and how does that affect your life more so than just like the fucking stretching and meditating
Yeah, my
angle of it?
friend Clay calls it mediocre calisthenics. Yoga in the West is mediocre calisthenics, and
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
funny because if we a lot of folks we're a very surface level society to a certain degree. Not everybody. I know that's a blanket statement, so I want to be clear on that how I'm saying this, but we have reduced it down to a fitness
I
workout
get you.
and then trying to, and
Hmm.
hot on top of that too. So trying to fit in philosophy in an hour long class that, and especially if you're in LA, you're rushing to get to class. You have a 1 hour class. You roll your mat out. You're a teacher. A lot of teachings these days tend to be more box store teachings type things where you do a 200-hour class. You pay $3,500 or
Right.
so to get it. They cover the basics. It's typically the Raja Yoga system, so it's going to be the 8 limb path with a primary focus on limbs 3 and 4, which is going to be your asana practice and your pranayama practice and your asana practice.
Okay.
And to me, before we even get to the physical body, because I see so many injuries take place in yoga, and we aren't even teaching the very first principle, which is ahimsa, nonviolence. And if we actually practiced yoga with ahimsa, nonviolence, in our physical practice, then we wouldn't have near as many injuries. We'd be listening to our bodies a little more. If we were practicing satya, truthfulness, non-lying, we wouldn't be lying to ourselves about ourselves and what our capabilities are on our practice mat, which means we wouldn't be we would be also practicing asteya, because if I only have an hour on my mat, then I wouldn't want to be stealing time away, that's what asteya is,
Hmm.
away from my presence on my mat. And I'd be practicing brahmacharya as well too, which is the fourth principle of, conserving one's own energy. Of course, it's also celibacy in more strict terms, but you'd be conserving your energy on your mat. And then we'd also be practicing the fifth piece, which is aparigraha, which is the, greedlessness and non-comparison. And we could be solely on our mat. But oftentimes, what do I see in a yoga class as a teacher? People comparing themselves to others, people doing things that are outside of their capabilities and getting themselves hurt, people not being honest with themselves about their body and pushing themselves too hard, which causes injury. So to me, I spent a lot of time, and when I was teaching at USC, I was on faculty at University of Southern California, teaching yoga philosophy and yoga asana in the physical education department. Most of the class was actually spent focusing on the first two, the first 3 limbs. We did asana practice, but we also did a lot of other stuff on the other 4 limbs as well too. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, and now I'm blanking on the name of it, but the 5th limb. I should know this. It's okay
I
then.
don't know the fifth limb rise.
Okay. It's the ones. It's letting
I've,
go of senses. It'll come to me later. Probably when we're off
mm,
this podcast.
of course. Yeah, I've heard. Is that the same as Ashtanga yoga? Because I know the Ash means like eight. So that's like the eight limbs of yoga. Or is that something
Yeah, so
different?
Ashtanga is going to be more of like they have a slow system, and Ashtanga yoga is part of the Raja yoga practice because there's four main systems. There's Jnana yoga, Bhakti yoga, Karma yoga, and then Raja yoga. Those are the four main systems, and a lot of the more
Okay.
modern yoga is actually Raja yoga. Iyengar to a certain degree is Raja yoga, but it combines some Bhakti. Kundalini is Raja yoga, but it also has Bhakti incorporated with it as well. It's also Karma yoga. So you sort of see
hmm
these infusion hybrids.
Okay. Yeah, I've never actually even heard that term of Raja Yoga because I've heard it laid out like, I mean, this is what it talks about in the Bhagavad Gita even. The Jnana Yoga, basically like the path of
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, the Karma Yoga, the path of action, and like Bhakti Yoga, the path of
Mm-hmm.
love. Does Raja Yoga have like a pithy title to it like that as
Raja
well?
yoga is more of the modern. It's more of like modern day yoga.
Okay.
It comes from
Okay.
the what is it Yoga Hatha Pradipika from the 13th century. That's ways of practicing both physical movement as well as learning to cleanse yourself properly. But if you look up Yoga
Mm,
Hatha Pradipika, that's the sort of what modern Raja Yoga is based off of, that Hatha Yoga method, Sun and
okay.
Moon.
Okay. Interesting. And it's funny you mentioned Kundalini. Do you know who Jai Dev
Yeah,
is? Yeah, he's coming to Tulum like next Sunday. My wife just signed up for like his class at the
sweet.
beach, and I've actually gone to one of his Kundalini events before in the city. It's really interesting. I like that stuff a lot. He's got such an epic fucking
Yeah,
beard. I aspire to be like that one day.
I couldn't
Dude,
do it.
he
I
looks
just look
amazing.
like a French painter or something like that. It just looks like trash on me.
I've tried growing out my beard, man. I just look homeless eventually, and then like I just have to trim it up so it looks
Yeah.
neater. But what I just mentioned a moment ago, the Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and I know that we're fucking losing half of our listeners right now, so I'm gonna reel
That's
us
all
back
good.
in. I think this is actually really interesting as it relates to this whole world of plant medicine and
Hmm.
psychedelics, because one of the things that we do, one of the reasons that I like microdosing and the way that we approach it in our
Hmm.
program is it's trying to turn everyday life into a little microcosm of a
Yes.
ceremony. And as far as I understand it, that's kind of karma
Hmm.
yoga. It's like, how can I work with whatever situation is
Hmm.
arising and see this as this is exactly what I'm supposed to be going through
Hmm.
right now in order to learn some lesson or to play some role potentially in somebody else's path.
Yes.
Like, we're not always the main character,
100%.
right? And then I think Bhakti Yoga kind of takes that a step further of like, okay, how can I now be of service and how can I imbue
Hmm.
love into this? So I kind of want to transition a little bit because I know that you work in this world of psychedelic
Hmm.
integration. I know you're doing some things with some other organizations like the Coming Home Project and stuff like that. So maybe just first for the listeners, give us a background of like what you do
Sure.
in this space, like what kind of work you do, and then I kind of want to hear how your yoga philosophy background. I had no idea you were teaching that at a college level, so I'm sure you know way more about this shit than I do. I want to hear about how that colors the work with the psychedelic integration because I feel like these things really go hand in hand, and it's kind of a shame that like part of the bhakti path is like no intoxicants because I've tried talking to Raghunath about like mushrooms
Hmm.
and stuff before because like these things go hand in hand
Yeah.
together, man. So tell us about your background with this work first, and then we'll get into the yoga philosophy end of
Sure.
things.
Well, I believe they go incredibly close hand to hand. There is no separation in them. As far as my background in this space, I'm what would be referred to as a psychedelic assisted coach or facilitator. They give all kinds of names, but I think of myself as a coach though because I have a lot of experience in this space and um, I know that there's a lot of curiosity about this space, and I've done a lot of my own journey work prior, and I've also learned a lot of lessons along the way too. Everybody, if you're going to be getting into the psychedelic space, you're going to have your own initiation and initial set of lessons that come there. But I have also learned to treat these things at a very ceremonial, like sacred level, not in an idolatry or worship type level. I want to be very clear on that, but as a sacred level, because we're talking about, especially if we get into psilocybin mushrooms, you're talking about organisms that are several billion years old, 2 billion years old. At least that's what carbon dating shows. You're talking about an organism that has been able to deal with all of the interesting things that have ever happened to this earth, yet are still here thriving today, versus hominids have only been here for maybe a couple 100,000 years, depending on your own evolutionary mindset around how humans evolved. But I don't see them as drugs. I see them as food, and I see it as something that should be taken sparingly. I see it as a bit of a supplement. We take supplements for our immune system. Why don't we take supplements for our brain? I try to help people understand the utilization process of it, how to work with it with intention, how to practice self-introspection with it as well too, because so many times we're looking for the external for an answer, when the truth is the answer is already inside of us. We just have to connect to that part of us. In the coaching side of things, it's helping people understand what would be referred to as their shadow self, helping them identify when ego shows up, helping them look at things like, how is guilt taking over your life? How is shaming yourself actually helping yourself? What is the self-criticism? What is the self-judgment? And what is the inherent belief that most people have that they're not enough? How is that actually helping you? And how is holding on to that belief helping you help other people in this world, or is it not? And bringing light to that. Mm-hmm. And that's where I like to tie in yoga philosophy, and to be truthful, I like to meet people where they're at. So it doesn't matter to me if they're Christian or Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or Tao or Tao. I feel like these things are prevalent everywhere. In every region you go, pretty much in the world, you can find a psilocybin mushroom, or you can find some level of a psychedelic medicine that coincides with a belief system that's there. And so looking at it as a check-in, not a check-out. If you're using these things to check out, then, we call that addiction. But if you're using it to check in, then we're using it as a tool for insight. So that way we can show up better for this world. And as you're aware, in the bhakti path, it's the beloved path. You're like, you chant a lot, and it's helping you connect to that deeper source of your Atman, or the love that's inside of you that you've had all along. If taking a small amount of something helps you connect to that, so you can express that out to the world to remind other people, where's the problem there? Where's the issue that lies there? There's been over 1,600 studies in the United States and worldwide, but over 1,600 studies on psilocybin alone. Yet we still call it a Schedule I drug. It's crazy to me.
They just haven't figured out how to profit off of it enough. I think that's why we see like the emergence of ibogaine as like this new hot topic, because there's a lot of fucking money in it from the clinics that serve
absolutely.
it. Mushrooms, there's just not that much profit to be made from mushrooms.
No, there's not. In cultivation, they're easy to cultivate. They relieve relatively low waste. You're exactly right. You can't make money off of it unless you're patenting it or have a patent process, because you can't trademark Mother Nature, you can't license another Mother Nature, and you can't register Mother Nature because it was already pre-existing. So what way do we have to go around it? Well, let's come up with this idea of synthesizing something, take all the natural components out of it, let's synthesize it in a lab, pull only what we want out of it, forgetting that the mushroom itself also provides other healthy components, harmaline and alkaloids and other useful tools that the body uses, a probiotic and a prebiotic, mainly prebiotics, that help with the delivery system. So, and I know it goes both ways. I can see arguments for both sides. But I do see it as more of a potential profit-driven tool versus Mother Nature's not looking for a profit. It's looking for connection.
Yep. Okay, I'm just absorbing that for a second. I like that. I like the way that you phrased it, to check in, not to check out. We talk about that a lot, especially with cannabis, especially with Canadian veterans, because uniquely in Canada, they will get prescribed like up to 10 grams of weed per day that's paid for by the government for their veterans. And you see this Jaguar painting behind me is from this guy Damian Robertson. He's like a world famous tattoo artist that we've worked with him and his family pretty extensively. When he started working with us, he was smoking every bit of those 10 grams a day that like the government allotted him. And he was like, yeah, man, I just have really severe brain fog from my PTSD. And I was like, no, Damien, you're fucking high all the time, bud. And all that we did was we taught him how to set intentions with the cannabis, and just making that one change of setting an intention. He went from like 10 grams a day to 3 grams a day.
That's awesome.
Not trying to cut back at all, but he just found he didn't need it because he wasn't using it to numb himself anymore, but actually to connect to his feelings and to his art. And he's a fucking sick artist.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, this was one of his visions from an ayahuasca ceremony that we facilitated.
Yeah.
And so he gifted this to us, and we've got a couple mandalas that his wife painted for us as well. They're a super talented couple. So for you, I can appreciate what you're saying of like meeting people wherever they're at. Like, I'm sure you don't jump into explaining to people all of these like different limbs of yoga, but how does your understanding of that stuff kind of color the work that you do? Like, for instance, I mentioned before how I kind of think that microdosing is basically karma yoga. Like, it is learning how to work with the things that come up. I don't tell people that because that term means nothing to them if they haven't read the Gita or other texts and stuff like that. So how does this stuff factor into the work that you do with people? Do you even think of it through that lens, or maybe you're just at a point where that stuff is so internalized to you, you don't think of it that way? You're just kind of living it and talking it just at a baseline?
Great question. You know, I think that the ultimate goal is try to embody our work, to be a living practice. You know, it's not even necessarily to talk about yoga, but it's to live yoga. The talking about yoga is only to explain a concept to somebody who may be struggling, and that's one tool in which we do that. I mean, but I can meet someone at a theological level, whatever their religion is, and also say, hey, you know, whether it's yoga, I mean, yoga is everything. What people, I think, misunderstand is people call yoga, it's a cult, versus, no, it's actually just one of the 6 books of the Rig Veda. You know, it's just one of the Darshana is what it's called, but it's just one small piece, a much bigger piece. But yoga by itself is not a religion. So sometimes I have to explain that to people, because there's nothing cultish about connecting to your body and having a better understanding of your body and why disease states are showing up. And if someone wants to argue that with me, then I'm like, okay, where's the resistance here in understanding that there's something taking place mentally inside of you that is driving a behavior which is now causing harm to your own body? That is what yoga is. All yoga means is union, yuj, Y-U-J, the connection of your mind with your physical body. Where is there a discrepancy when it comes to religion there, and why would that be? You know, and usually it's like disarming people, because a lot of people have this idea because they see the Instagram yogi who misrepresents the yoga practice that's in their Lululemon or shirt off or whatever. And I was that guy too. If you scroll back far enough on me, you'll see half-naked pictures of me, like doing all kinds of weird shit. And the thing is like, that wasn't yoga. That was me setting a timer and doing a post so I could get likes on Instagram. Let's just be honest with it is. Like, it's what it is. And then you grow past that phase. But, you know, in answer to your question, maybe to go a little bit more, when people are working with a microdose, for instance, or even macrodose, but we'll start with microdose, when you look at the system engineering of what a microdose does to the body, it comes into your body metabolizes it, it starts to work on your 5-HT2A receptor sites, which is your serotonin pathways. It's going to start bringing something up, because if you've been offline for a while and all of a sudden you introduce something to your system that now helps the nervous system or starts to make linkages within the nervous system, then emotions are going to arise. New thoughts are going to arise. Now we have to start to be the observer of our minds and the observer of these emotions or these feelings or these inner sensations that are coming up that maybe we didn't have before. That's yoga too. Because, you know, some people would argue yoga is the quieting of the mind. Well, it's not really quieting the mind. It's the observation of one's own mind. And when we're practicing microdosing, or even in a larger dose, you're learning to observe without reaction what is taking place within your inner world, as opposed to, oh, there's a thought. Now I got to react to it and spin myself up. And now half my day is gone because I've been contemplating and ruminating about something that doesn't actually exist.
I just Googled something, and I've never do this, but I'm sorry to distract myself from what you were saying for 1 second, because what you just said of like the definition that people think of yoga. So I mentioned this podcast earlier, Wisdom of the Sages. It's run by these two guys, and one of them is named Kastuba. The definition he gives is that yoga is a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing its true nature. And dude, I feel like you could say what is the value of a psychedelic experience, and you could give basically the 100%. Same exact answer. Overcoming the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing its own true nature. Yeah, we need more people doing yoga and mushrooms, dude. That's the answer.
I would love to lead a class. I've actually thought about this because I think cannabis is also very powerful medicine when worked with properly. But to teach a microdose class with yoga involved with it, where people feel more embodied. A lot of people hate their bodies. They don't love their bodies. And you can tell they don't love their bodies by the way they treat it, by what they put into it, into their mouths, into their eyes, into their ears. And it's so unconscious and they're so unaware of it. It's hard for them to make that connection that we literally live and die by our own hands. Our lives are literally in the palm of our hands. And the more awareness of what it is we're putting into our hands through either conscientious choice or if it's been conditioned, then understanding how past conditioning has led to a behavior which leads to a hand-to-mouth action, which causes dis-ease within the gut system and then throughout the rest of the body, leading to inflammation. If people actually took time to understand that, they would, make a shift. And there's a whole yoga practice within eating as well.
So, all right, this is the direction that I want to go in. And just because you said you would love to teach classes like this, a little while ago, my wife put together this whole program called like Yoga for Psychonauts, but she never really like launched it or sold it or anything. So it was almost a precursor to the mindful microdosing program that we have now. And in our like every Tuesday, she does like a microdose and move yoga class. And she teaches all of these like cannabis assisted yoga classes as well. And I think especially for women, we have seen this be like one of the most powerful tools to overcome that negative relationship with the body, like you were just talking about. And it's funny, we're having this talk now. Literally 2 or 3 hours ago, we had our group call for one of our cohorts, and today's topic was loving kindness. And so I led everyone through like a metta meditation, like a loving kindness meditation. And it's really interesting the way that we do it. Because I think there's different ways to teach that. But starting off with someone that you really love, and then like a friend, and then a stranger, and then someone you have a difficult relationship with, or someone you don't like, and then finishing with yourself. And it's always interesting because most of our clients have an easier time sending love to someone that they actually hate than they do sending love to themselves. And so then we get to have a talk about, well, why the fuck is that? Like, why is it so hard to say these kind things to ourselves? And then next week we get into embodied healing. So like putting this stuff from your head into your heart through cannabis and yoga for the most part. So yeah, man, you're spot on with that stuff. Like I think it's an incredibly powerful tool. But where I actually wanted to go, unless you want to say something else on that front.
Maybe just to add to that fifth one, to yourself, a lot of people struggle with worthiness. And because I've been there and experienced that, and now realize that I am worthy of good, I am worthy of love, I am worthy of that, and I am worthy of speaking to myself in a loving way. And I find myself, the more that we embody worthiness, the more that we feel that internally, but the more we can share that worthiness with other people too, as a reminder. And a lot of times I feel there's a lot of, this is going to sound like a judgment, I don't mean it that way, but there's like a lot of half-hearted mindfulness teachers out there that, are in their heads even more than, it's like they're it's almost like trying to change a tire while you're driving, like you're trying to help people while also trying to fix yourself at the same time. And so because of that, the messaging that comes through is somewhat unclear because, not to say that, I mean, I'm not, we're all perfectly imperfect, right? Like, I don't need to be 100% perfect. I will have flaws for the rest of my life to a certain degree, but as long as I'm working on them, that's the only thing that matters. And there will always be triggers, but I'm also worthy of feeling good. I'm worthy of having abundance. I'm worthy of, and I think it's important to remind people of that you have to give to yourself. If you're constantly giving things out, you're just giving from an empty cup. And then what? If you're empty, then what is really anybody ever getting from you? They're just getting your fumes. They're getting your like coffee grounds at the bottom of your cup. And like, no wonder why it's like chewy and
Yep.
like,
Man, that's something we talk about a lot, specifically for first responders, because
mm-hmm.
like they give the best parts of themselves to the job, and then their family settles for whatever scraps are left over after
Mm-hmm.
that, which is kind of ass backwards, because like you could be the best cop on earth, you're 100% replaceable at work. Like they will replace you the next day if you die or quit your job or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And like your family are the one people that could never replace you, and that they get the worst parts of
Yeah.
people because they're not pouring into their own cup
Mm-hmm.
first. So yeah, man, I hear you with everything that you're sharing. The direction I wanted to go in, and I kind of fucking derailed us with that whole
Okay.
talk. You said there's a whole yoga of eating. So explain that, because I know you guys do a lot of work around, I guess maybe your wife more so than you, around the
Mm-hmm.
nutrition specifically, but working with people with like autoimmune disorders. And you've mentioned some things before about your body almost manifesting an illness as a result of like an internal condition. Sure. So I want to get there. First of all, what is the yoga of eating? What does that even mean?
Broad scope, the westernized yoga practice focuses on I would just call it the gross body, the musculoskeletal system body. And maybe we get a little bit into the respiratory system with breath work and pranayama. And then maybe we get like a little bit into, some digestive work with specific types of breathing. But what I think people don't realize is that your gut is one of the first brains in your body. And that sounds weird, but like your gut is what has to process your decision making. It's meaning when you put food into your body, your gut has to process that. It has to be smart enough to know what to do with that, to metabolize it, to break it down. And this is where we get into subtle body. So we have gross body, which would be musculoskeletal system, respiratory, cardiovascular, but then we get into more subtle body, which is listening to your internal organs. And that requires a lot of listening and slowing down. Because at any given moment, your body is giving you signs and signals that something's taking place inside of it. When we eat something and we say, oh, I'm tired. Well, why are you tired? Oh, it's because whatever you put inside of your system is making your body lethargic or sleepy. It's not giving you energy. Or maybe you feel kind of jittery because you just had caffeine. So now you have this up and then a down. But how is that signature vibration? Because you had that coffee, now you're up and you're down. How are you, through that choice, affecting the rest of the world? Yes, you're taking it to wake up, but why aren't we choosing different methodologies rather than just quick fixes to temporarily feel good for a moment? Why aren't we making better decisions more along like Ayurvedic lines, where we're building the body slowly but surely, so the body is in more of this nice, calm state of being rather than this up and down? And a lot of people, the way that people eat is oftentimes conditioned, just like your body is conditioned through not working it out or sleeping too much or just laying on a couch and not doing anything. Well, our gut is the same way too, and we're taught how to eat through our parents. A lot of us growing up, eat all the food on your plate. You're not allowed to leave until it is. So like we have to feed ourselves past the point of fullness, or we're having TV dinners because maybe a parent isn't around, so we're forced to eat whatever is available to us. And this is where nurture versus nature takes over. We're either nurtured by our adults or nature takes over, and now we don't want to feel hungry, so we temporarily satisfy that sensation through eating, rather than understanding what is that hunger representing and what is my body really wanting in that moment of hunger, versus just filling a hole because I feel the sensation that says, oh, I'm hungry. I'm feeling the sensation of hunger. So that's what yoga of eating would be around. And in the yoga of eating, there's like a lot of diagnostics that need to be done too. Most people's guts, they're experiencing dysbiosis. I mean, when you look at the amount of colitis, ulcers, GI tract issues going on, GI tract cancer is the number 4 cancer. I think it's up to number 3 now, but it's like one of the highest cancers there is, and it's only getting worse. And part of that is because we're not processing our emotions. Most people are emotional eaters. When they're going through something hard or something fast, they say, well, I don't do drugs. I don't want to check out, but I'll take this food. I'll eat this Snickers bar. So it's just like you're still checking out, but you're just checking out on more of like a convenience store route versus really eating what your body actually needs so your body can show up for you.
Dude, I think this whole world of like the digestive issues, it's so difficult to actually understand for for a normal person, man. I remember back when I was in like college, I think I went to some seminar because I was an exercise science major, and they were talking about like leaky gut disorder. And this was, like a decade ago. So I feel like this was like super cutting edge stuff 10 years ago. And I don't think our understanding of it has really advanced all that much. And it certainly hasn't translated into something that the average person can understand. So like one of our clients technically has Crohn's disease. And that's kind of just like a label that gets put on some stuff because some doctors are like, yeah, dude, your intestines are all fucked up. And like they really have no idea what to do about it. And dude, like he knows that it's all tied to his abusive father growing up and then getting into drugs when he was really young and then his experiences in the military and all these kinds of things that he never processed. So it is an interesting thing. It's like if you don't digest and process your emotions, your digestive system starts to have all these issues. So, and this is all stuff I used to fucking scoff at, dude. Back when I was working in a physical therapy clinic, man, I always tell this story. Like we had a woman come in, this older woman, and she was telling us how she thinks that her hip pain is related to this like unprocessed emotional stuff that she's been through. And we're all like, get a load of this fucking crazy lady. Like I can look at your MR or your x-ray. I can clearly see you got hip arthritis. Like this is why your hip hurts, not because you're fucking sad. Right. And now I'm like, that's the first place that I go to is like, what is the emotional connection to like whatever my body's trying to tell me? So, all right, break this down for us. So like, I don't know. I want someone listening to this not just to be like, wow, that was interesting, but like, here's something you can actually maybe start doing. So what do you actually do? Well, let's say you're coaching somebody. Let's say you're working with somebody who has some manner of gut dysfunction. What's your approach to actually helping that person? Like, where do you start?
Well, first I'd like to just understand their habits and their patterns. What is it like? One, what are you eating and what's your frequency of eating? Are you a 3-meal-a-day person? Are you a grazer? Do you intermittent fast? Like, I try to find out just their general basis and knowledge of like understanding around eating and eating habits. Because a lot of people they're so busy with a 9-to-5 job that it's like, well, I wake up in the morning and, I have a cup of coffee and then I might have a donut. And I'm like, all right, time out. Let's maybe look at that a little bit. Okay. And so what are you feeding? Is that a habit or where did you learn to, eat? And of course, we're never here to shame a person. Like my whole role in coaching is never to shame a person, is to take someone's raw talent and build upon what's already available for them. And it's to help them give the insight of, okay, this habit comes up, or maybe I might snack at this time because I'm feeling a little bit stressed, or, people there's a big protein thing. Like, I got to get my protein. But the truth is that no one's ever died of protein malnutrition. But what most people need is fiber. What most people need is like more complex carbohydrates in their system at a balanced level, not just throwing protein in, because if you put too much protein in, you're going to get acid reflux, which is going to lead to leaky gut or a level of GERD, or it's going to start coming up in some way.
Especially when it's whey protein isolate and not like a nice juicy ribeye or something.
Right, I know. And then it's also like meeting people where their habits are at. Some people are omnivores, some are more carnivores, some are more plant-based, and even though I choose a plant-based lifestyle, I don't poo-poo on other people's lifestyle. It just works for my body. It makes sense for my body. I work best with what I eat through trial and error, and I've had to find that out. But everybody's different. Everybody genetically is different. So I am not one to say you need to be certain things. However, what I do like to try to work with people is okay, so you want to do a little bit of weight loss. Let's look at your eating habits and patterns. Okay, maybe let's start to understand what hunger means to you. When you say you're hungry, what does that actually mean to you? You say, I am hungry versus I feel the sensation of hunger. Because that's two different things. When we start to identify...
Dude, the dad in me has to say...
What's that?
The dad in me has to go... The dad part of me has to say, hi, hungry, I'm dad.
Exactly. It's like when I'm sad, I am sad. No, you're feeling the sensation of sadness. And looking at teaching people about their circadian rhythms and like what are optimal times to eat. Teaching people about, are you eating seasonally even? Because that's also a thing. Food stresses the body out. And if you're eating foods out of season that don't belong in the season, or you're eating foods from a different zone of the world and bringing them here and eating it, it stresses the system out too, because the body is not used to that. Yeah. And it's not that far out there.
Yeah, that shouldn't be like revolutionary information. I distinctly remember, because my wife is Austrian, we were on a vacation in Austria. We're in the Alps at like this alpine lake, and they have like a breakfast buffet at the hotel, and I was so stoked because they had pineapple, and I fucking love pineapple because I live here in Mexico, so I get pineapple that was grown an hour away, and I was about to eat it, and I stopped. I was like, what the fuck is a pineapple doing at this alpine lake in Austria? Right. Like, this shit does not belong here. Like, there's all these cured meats and cheeses. I'm like, that makes sense, and that shit was delicious. And the pineapple tasted so gross because who knows how it fucking got there. So yeah, I mean that's you're describing stuff that should be like not rocket science.
But we don't teach these things.
And I'm sure you've experienced, we don't teach these things, and I'm sure you've experienced like a significant portion of people's issues can get cleared up just by bringing like a base level awareness to those fundamental kinds of things.
Absolutely. Nearly roughly 90 to 95% of all autoimmune diseases start in the gut. Yes, there could be genetic traits that take over, but almost all of it starts in the gut. And if we have a better awareness of what goes into the gut, just like if you have an unleaded gas car, you're not going to put diesel fuel in it, or else your engine's going to break. But people are putting diesel, metaphorically speaking, people are putting diesel fuel into their gut all the time when it's supposed to be unleaded fuel.
Yeah. I think we're starting to understand that almost every disease process is a metabolic disease at its core. Like, we're starting to understand cancer that way. We're starting to see like Alzheimer's and dementia that way as like almost like a third type of diabetes. It's like a glucose intolerance in the brain. Can you talk to me like maybe on a kind of philosophical or metaphysical level for a second, your understanding of autoimmune diseases? Like, what is that? Because you've kind of talked around this idea of your body trying to tell you something. In our program, we talk a lot about like the external environment starting to match our internal environment. So if you want to make a change, it actually starts from the internal environment. How does that relate to this idea of an autoimmune disorder?
So I think autoimmune can come from two places. It can come from generational, and it can come from just environmental in itself too. The generational is that for 9 months we're baking inside of our mothers, and we are adopting to a certain degree our mother's immune system and how our mother's nervous system as well too, because if our mother is anxious, if our mother's nervous, whatever's going on, or if our mother's calm and relaxed, as a child we're going to experience that subtle vibration. We're going to experience her heartbeat. Like, all of these things are subtle familiarities that are underscored and never really examined. And that's why also when I work with people, I'm like, help me understand like your parents, because parental care and parental conditioning play a major role in our nervous systems and autoimmune disease. If my mother struggled with autoimmune disease, then there's a pretty good chance I'm going to also have some struggles with it until I learn to figure those things out. Was your mother a smoker? Was she a drinker? Did she, eat a lot of unhealthy things during her pregnancy? Was there the familial environment that she was in? Was the father yelling a lot, or was he calm? Did he put your hands on the belly? Like, there's a lot of things that go into the way in which we deal with it, because autoimmune is also associated with histamine response and cortisol response. And when the body is under stress, now you have increase of histamine and cortisol taking place inside of the body, which then the body launches into, during 2020 they call it the cytokine storm, but you have all of these, like, the body starts to attack itself. It sees it's like inherently like something's wrong. So,
Yeah.
There's a part of it where we as human beings, having an understanding of the generational past and the history is important. But then also, if we want to step out of that, we can't keep repeating what our ancestors did. So then there's an onus on ourselves, and there is a slow and steady understanding of our history to how we got here and how the disease evolved. And then there's, hopefully we can connect with a practitioner, or maybe we do a little bit of trial and error to figure out, okay, that's not working. Okay, I saw that my mother ate, or my father ate, lots of, candies, and it turned into an autoimmune disease called diabetes. Or, we ate a lot of seed oils, which now oxidized cholesterol, we know leads to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Or you start to have, other issues like osteoarthritis, which is also stems from the gut. Yes, there's a portion of it that's generational, but when we look at epigenetics, this stuff can be turned on and off too. It's a switch. So I hope that's helpful.
I was only laughing as you were saying that because my dad fully attributes his diabetes to Klondike bars specifically.
What would he do for
Bro, anything. I love you, Dad. I know you don't listen. My mom listens to these. Hi, Mom. Dude, it's interesting because when I was a kid, I was super unhealthy. I had like really severe asthma and allergies, and I was like getting like allergy shots, like starting from, I don't know, I was like 4 years old or 7 years old or something, up through when I was like 19. And I've outgrown like every allergy that I've had. Like I used to be fatally allergic to peanuts and bee stings, and I'm not deathly allergic to them anymore. Which that stressed my mom the fuck out the first time I sent her a picture of me eating peanut butter, because I almost died. I was like 2 years old and she fed me peanut butter, and like that gave her fucking PTSD, Peanut butter's so delicious. And I fully attribute that to like good. I started doing psychedelics when I was in grad school. And then lo and behold, after doing acid a few times, I wasn't allergic to peanut butter anymore. Weird, right? Like, I know. Where's the science on that one? I want to ask you something else as it relates to kind of the autoimmune disorders, but actually maybe before we get there, you tell me if this is fair to say. One of the things that I kind of believe, I mentioned this a moment ago, I think a lot of times people think that things are driven by like the external state. So like my environment, my surroundings are going to dictate how I feel inside. Sure. I think that's true to some degree, but I actually think the opposite is more true, where we manifest the external conditions to match our internal conditions. There's this really great book called Psychocybernetics where this guy talks about like, basically our self-image, who we think we are, that gets formed and solidified. And then my subconscious mind will take steps to make it so that my external environment actually reflects that back to me. And I know that sounds kind of weird and woo-woo, but this is what we see with people who are in abusive relationships. It's like, why do you keep going back to that same type of partner over and over again? I think it's because some part of you feels like that's what you deserve, or that's what's comfortable, or that's what your nervous system is familiar with. And then you choose partners that recreate those external conditions to match your internal conditions. And so is it fair to say, in your opinion, like that's actually kind of how the disease process works with these autoimmune disorders, where there is something disordered or unhealthy in our internal mental environment, and then our physical body manifests some sort of sickness to match that. Is that too fucking
No.
woo-woo out there, or is that kind of what you believe, like that's how
No,
this
I
works?
saw it all the time. Before I got into yoga, I was working in the orthopedic spine pain management world, and it was a constant treatment of pain through pain medications versus like really digging into the psychology of why is the pain there in the first place. Because roughly 90% of pain is psychological, 10% is what's actually felt, but we have to reverse engineer it and help understand like what is it that we're holding on to. And it depends on where in the body it's forming as well too. Generally speaking, because I worked in the ortho spine, it was the neck, mid back, low back area. Neck represents looking back at the past, something that took place in the past. Your body's resilient. It knows how to heal itself and it knows how to survive. Like it's been doing it forever. Look at the way animals thrive. I was just, I'll come back to this in a second, but I was just watching a video earlier of these. They're called barnacle geese. They're called barnacle geese, and they live on these like super high cliffs. And when it's time for the baby to actually leave, the baby can't fly. It has to literally jump from about 50 to 100 feet up, depending, and it lands on the ground, and it's able to just walk away with it. And the geese are there to help it, And I use that as an example because nature is resilient. It knows how to heal itself and it knows how to survive and it knows what its limits are. Our bodies are the same way too, but we don't trust our bodies. And we're constantly looking for something external to treat the body rather than take on the responsibility for the body, that this is my body. I only get one of them this lifetime. This is my responsibility and nobody else's. So if I want it to thrive, I must treat it well. I have to feed it right. I have to exercise it. I have to sleep. I have to, give it the care that it needs. And most people aren't taught that. And so, like back pain, for instance, lower back pain, a lot of it is related to not feeling emotionally supported and financial issues, because it's literally we are breaking our backs working. We're afraid to actually do what it is our purpose and gift is here to do. So we get caught up oftentimes in a 9-to-5 job or a job that works long hours where you're sitting at a desk looking at a computer, wondering why our pain in our body is showing up. Versus, are we actually living our truth? Are we living our purpose? Are we living our gift that we were given? Most people also believe they don't have a gift, that it's just like, oh, this is just life and this is how it is and I'm not special or anything like that. And so, this is what I've been taught. I need to get a job and work 9 to 5 and maybe I'll get a pension. And like, that's such an old, outdated way of thinking. Dude, even peasants worked 156 days a year. Like when you look back at medieval times, the average peasant
worked less than the average office worker.
Right, it's crazy. Yeah. And you wonder why they were so happy. And you didn't see some of the pain and stuff that they experienced. Yes, they had their own shit going on, but this is just, to a certain degree, modern slavery, and it shows up as like embodied pain. But going back to what I was saying, like neck pain, looking back at the past, pain behind the heart, struggles with actually living from our heart, overprotectiveness, being closed off to the world. If people actually took the time to examine how they embody these things and their fear of actually getting therapy or talking about it, if they actually did the work around it, they would feel so much better. And the pharmaceutical industries would be making less and less per quarter.
That's why we can't talk about these things.
Don't talk about it out loud.
Where does that come from when you said like the neck pain is related to looking back, the back pain or the lower back pain to like the financial stuff? Where are you getting that from, those correlations?
So a couple different ones. My mom was a big fan of Louise Hay. She wrote several fantastic books, but the one primary one was called You Can Heal Your Life. And I actually taught out of it for about 4 years at recovery centers. And basically it was taking responsibility for your life and not pointing the fingers at anything else. Looking at your micro actions and your macro actions and taking responsibility for what it is that you're doing and rewiring it through new habits and patterns versus just being I'm a wallflower to life and this is how I am and this is the way it's going to be and woe is me. Because you can either be a victim or you can be move out of that victimhood into like a champion of your life. And I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to teach as a coach. I don't teach victimhood. I teach, champions. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, no disagreement there at all. That's the beauty of taking responsibility for things, is like not just to say, well, I suck and everything is my fault, but like if I'm responsible for everything, that means also it's within my purview to do something about it, so I can actually change. I was just curious, like the specific kinds of correlations. I've heard that like the lower back with the financial abundance thing, and maybe there's something chakra-y related to that too, with like the sacral chakra and being like, or the root chakras.
absolutely.
You can tell how much I don't know about
Yeah,
chakras.
Muladhara, Mulabandha. I mean, I think a lot of lower back pain actually comes from a closed off and tightened, what would be called a Muladhara root chakra, but let's just call it what it is.
What's that?
Inferior gastric plexus, if you want to get more on the scientific terms of it, because each
Say that again?
it's your inferior hypogastric plexus. So
Okay.
that is all the nerve bundles that run down from the sacral area that wrap underneath the periperineum, and they're in charge of your elimination, urination, defecation, ejaculation, all of that. If that is in a tightened state, meaning you're gripping, then you're not getting lymphatic flow, you're not getting limbic flow, you're not getting blood flow down there. So you see a lot of guys with prostate issues, enlarged prostates, because they're living in fear. They're fearful of death, they're fearful of injury, they're fearful of where their next paycheck's going to come from, they're fearful of losing their job or losing their partner. There's usually a fear that's beneath the surface. And I also know this too because I've had some deep conversations internally under medicine where I've had these questions to myself. What is the causality of this? Well, the causality is this because you're not letting go, or the causality is because your ego is getting in the way, or the personification of yourself is blocking your light, as opposed to, just be yourself. People are going to judge you no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, I can't stop that, but I can be myself, and I can own myself. And like John Kabat-Zinn in his book said, wherever you go, there you are. The lowest common denominator of any given situation is me, where I find myself. And so I can't have you without me here. You know what I mean? So taking responsibility and ownership for my contributions to this moment is a huge facet. And then we become proactive in our experience of living, rather than just being I'm a victim to life and a victim to circumstance, and it's how it is, and blah blah blah.
I want to ask you more about the fear part. And this will actually, I've got one specific client in mind. You know who you are if you're listening to this. She's got such intense medical anxiety. And some of it is like understandable of, she works with her body for a living, like first responder and doing some other like physical jobs. Completely self-reliant, like kind of moved away from her family. So it's like if she ever lost her ability to earn money, she would have, doesn't have anything to fall back on. So that's like, to me, that's like a reasonable amount of anxiety. But this is like above and beyond, to the point that she practically convinced herself she had kidney stones because she saw like a TikTok video about kidney stones. And I'm like, let's start there. Let's stop watching these fucking videos. But how does that fear, like, how does that play into the body almost manifesting things? Because at what point is that like a self-fulfilling prophecy that she's gonna, like, I don't want to say give herself kidney stones, but you get what I'm saying, like the fear around your body causing issues with your body. So you spoke earlier also about how can we build trust with our body, and that's something that we've tried to focus on, is like healing that relationship and having faith that your body will take care of you. Help me help my client, David. What do I tell her?
I mean, of course, I would need to know just a little bit more before I can make any assumptions. So I would put that caveat there. But one of the first things I always try to work with people on is like understanding their identity. Like, who are you beyond this label? Who are you beyond? Because I'll speak for myself. I was in the military as a captain in the U.S. Air Force. Okay, that's a title. Two different titles: U.S. Air Force and captain. And then if I put my job title there as launch integration specialist, okay, so we have these titles that we live by, that we identify with, and that comes with a lot of things with it. Just like in the military, I'm a soldier. That comes with an identity that I have to act and be a certain way for other people, and if I don't do that, then I succumb to judgment. So there's this personification that we are constantly putting out to the world that we have to recognize that, guess what? I know that I am more than just a captain in the Air Force. I know that I was more than just a medical device rep, or more than just a yoga instructor, or more than just a psychedelic assistant coach. Those are just words to help people relate to the work that I do. But it's understanding and helping people understand that they are so much more than the titles they lay on themselves. Because there are oftentimes when we lay a title on ourselves, we call that entitlement. We are now confined to what that title now beholdens to us, or we're beholden to that title. And then we embody that title. And now I have to show up a certain way, which means I can't be weak, which means I can't, be vulnerable. And the fact of the matter is like healing happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We allow ourselves to be seen. In fact, true strength is the ability to be vulnerable, not just compartmentalize it, suppress it, and shut it down so the world can't see it so I can pretend to be okay to the rest of the world, because that's not fair. That's not healthy either. And I think that we have to come to a place where it's like, I am hurting. And, this part of me, say for instance, is kidneys. Kidneys have to do with processing and filtering, and specifically blood. Blood typically represents joy flowing through us. And so if there's a lack of joy in one's own life, we need to go back to that little girl or little boy and start to experience what is joy again for us. Am I really enjoying the work that I do, or do I just get do I just get an ego trip because of the work that I do? Am I actually truly enjoying it, walking away feeling fulfilled by the work that I do? The other part is if they are like a first responder, I think you said they're a first responder, right? Are they processing in a healthy way what they're experiencing? Because if they're experiencing coded people and meth heads and, heart arrests, or, I actually have quite a few first responders that I work with that are interested in the psychedelic assisted therapy space. And man, it works wonders because it's a depersonalization. And we have to depersonalize our work and not make it about us. Like, that was that person's choice. It sucks. It's sorry. We have to process the emotion around it. But we also, at the same time, choose to be there. So it's not like we don't have a choice in the matter. And so we have to take the choices on ourselves. And I don't mean to be cold at all by saying that. And I really don't want it to come across that way. But this is about empowerment. And so we're either blaming the external or we're taking the control for ourselves.
When you say the depersonalization thing, you mean like not making everyone else's problems our problems, like not putting that burden on us?
Yeah, and there's one of my teacher calls it an STD, a spiritually transmitted disease. And it's the other form of STD, which is just as prevalent as others, as actual, as sexually transmitted diseases. But it's when we pick up the energy of other people, like when we're handling people, they're constantly taking on other people's problems. They're trying to be the problem solver, Mr. Fix-It. And a lot of kids are fixers, or we just want to fix other people's problems versus, I want to, holding space is a funny terminology, so I'll just be gentle with it. But rather than being a mirror, we try to fix their problems. Rather than being in our heart, we feel like, well, you can't do it, so I'll do it for you. That's not empowerment if I do it for you. That's actually, you getting a free pass. And the thing into healing is there is no shortcuts to the healing process. There's no speeding up the healing process either. That's one thing psychedelics have definitely taught me, is that healing has to take its time. And no matter how fast I want it to go, it's going to have to run its course.
Yeah, I think perhaps at best we can just create the optimal conditions, maybe so that there's nothing that hampers it. Like I have a Band-Aid on my finger right now that I just put on earlier. I burned my hand the other day, which actually I think has some interesting spiritual connections to why this hand and why it happened when it happened. Had this gnarly fucking blister that just popped earlier. So it's like wound healing. We keep it kind of moist and we keep it kind of warm, right? Like, so creating the optimal conditions. I can't actually make it heal any faster. It would heal slower if I kept picking at it, or if it was too dry, or if it was too cold. So that's why I have the Band-Aid and some Neosporin on it. But yeah, I can't make it actually go any faster than it's naturally going to go on its own. It was such a gnarly blister, dude. It was massive.
And a lot of times, I mean, stuff like that, when it's a personal thing, it's, I don't know about your experience, but for me, it's like I got a splinter the other day on this finger. And it's just because I was moving too fast and I wasn't paying attention, and I was just kind of going through emotions rather than really being present with what I was doing with my body. And of course, you know, when that happens, accidents happen.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll tell my clients, like, if someone's talking about something happening, like one of our guys had like a sciatica flare up, and it's like, dude, as your friend, like, man, that shit sucks. That's so annoying. As your psychedelic coach, it's my obligation to be really fucking annoying for a minute and ask you, what is your body trying to tell you? Why did this just happen? Like, where are you pushing yourself too hard? Why do you need this opportunity to slow down? Because this guy in particular is talking about how he couldn't train jiu-jitsu, which was making him crazy because his back was injured. So I'm like, as your friend, bro, that sucks. As your coach, why? Why is this happening right now? You know, it does get perhaps a little bit annoying, but also that's my job.
Yeah, that's a whole other ballgame and topic. I see a lot of injuries. You see it in yoga, you see it in HIIT, you see it in CrossFit, you see it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I see it happens the most when people aren't in a relaxed state. Because when you're doing things in a relaxed state, your prevalence for injury is significantly less. But oftentimes there is something that is driving it, whether it's ego or this desire. I see this a lot, this desire to be an old version of ourselves. So you see these like 45, 50-year-old men trying to be 24-year-olds again, you know, reliving their glory days, as opposed to, you don't need to do that again. Like, you don't even have to, I know you're trying to prove things to yourself, but the thing is like, you don't have to prove anything to yourself, because at the very core, you're already enough. Like, you know, listen to your body and the way that it needs to work out. But you don't need to push your body in such a way that you end up breaking it, because then you're no good either.
Yep. Dude, this was I didn't think that we were going to talk about half the shit that we just talked about, so that was really cool.
There's so much more.
There's one last thing. Well, I know, dude. That's what I was going to say. We could keep doing this all fucking day. But there's one thing I haven't asked you about, which I think is important too, and that's some of this other work that you are doing. So you guys are hosting your own retreats, right? The luminosity thing. And I shouldn't even call it a thing. That tells you how much I don't know about what you guys are doing. And then the Coming Home project, Coming Home organization. Talk to me about those. So what's your involvement with these things?
So Luminosity is sort of a brainchild of my wife and mine, and it's sort of a full. We like to think of it as, and it would be awesome if we could one day build a university, like a small kind of university thing around it. But really teaching people empowered mind, body, spiritual health, and meeting people where they're at with it. Helping people really understand how their decisions in their life are affecting them and how it shows up, whether it be in self-doubt or dis-ease at the physiological level. But on top of that, we work a lot with couples and partners and helping people in their partnerships, because there is a lot of conditioning both men and women have growing up, depending on cultural conditioning as well too, that leads to you have your honeymoon phase, but then when it gets down to the realness of the relationship, people start like going in different directions, and our focus is to like, let's lean in. You married each other for a reason, or you're choosing each other for a reason. Why not learn to grow with each other rather than, oh, you didn't like what they say, so let's just ignore them. It's about teaching people to really step into their healthy masculine and healthy feminine and show up for each other. That's what a lot of Luminosity is around, and we do a lot of health coaching there, as well as individuals that do want to go down the route of psychedelic assisted coaching. Then we provide coaching support for individuals, as well as retreat information that we're aware of individuals that are holding space for that. Now on the Coming Home project, this is strictly volunteer, and like just for the love of being a veteran and being in the military and seeing the effects of war has on people. I think I saw the numbers the other day, but just from the Vietnam War alone, there was in the realm of like at least, I want to say, close to well over 100,000 deaths that came from the Vietnam War. And then on top of that, there are still living to this day about 271,000 people with complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so there's a huge community of individuals that, God bless the VA, I know they're doing the best they can, but they're working at the speed of science. And if you know what the speed of science is, it's the speed of the FDA and how much funding they can get. And oftentimes it involves a lot of money. And with the VA numbers say 22, but we believe that number is closer to 44 deaths a day.
Yeah.
With that many deaths a day, we have to be doing something about it. We can't just sit on our laurels and pretend like this isn't happening. And so what the Coming Home Project does is we raise funds from individual donors and corporations, and we are able to put that money towards sending individuals to receive psychedelic assisted therapies in designated locations where it is deemed legal due to indigenous practices. And we will typically work with psilocybin or ayahuasca and support not only the soldier, but their spouses too. Because when a person deploys and sees a war, they're leaving someone at home, whether it be the husband or the wife, because we have both sides. I have helicopter pilots that are men and women. I have pilots, men and women. I have it crosses the whole gambit, right? But when you leave to go to war and you're in a relationship, especially if you have kids, now you're asking your partner to step into another version of themselves when you were there to complete that whole circle. So say you're a man, for instance, and you go off to war. Well, now the mother has to step into a masculine role. And so not only is she playing the mother, but she has to adapt into a masculine role to take care of the kids. But then if the husband comes home, and hopefully they do, now there's a odd issue that takes place because the person who stayed home has no concept of what the war was like, and that's been compartmentalized by the soldier. And of course, everything wants to be made good when they come home, but the woman has now had to step into a masculine role. So now the male's meeting this new form and version of the woman who's had to step into their masculine. Does that make sense? How I'm saying that? So it's almost like you're coming home to a completely different person as well, too. So how can you come back together and meet an understanding and rebalance that out again? So and help talk about it, because a lot of times soldiers, when they go to war, they don't want to talk about it because it was just too much for them to see, or it was too overwhelming, or they lost friends, and that brings up too much emotion which they don't know what to do with, so they just want to push it down.
What we've seen too is a lot of guys come home and now they don't know what the fuck you're supposed to do with a 4-year-old who's like having a temper tantrum because maybe you were only home a few times and weren't really a part of that process. You don't really have that relationship and you don't know what to do. And even seeing that now with some of the first responders that we work with, where they're like, dude, it's easier for me, like I hate my work environment and I would still rather go pick up overtime hours than be at home, because at least then I feel like I'm providing for my family and I don't even know what to do with my kids when I'm at home. So is that a specific focus of the Coming Home Project, is the work with the couples specifically?
Yeah.
Like that's really cool.
We do integration groups. We have I think we have at least 8 integration groups a month, whether it be, so I'll teach yoga, gut health, mind body health, and I'll typically teach 2 classes during the month. We have other meditation practitioners and breathwork practitioners, and we've sent over 1,000 people through our program. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and we help raise funds for others, because we also realize that some people aren't ready to do a psychedelic journey yet. Like maybe they're on medications and they have to come down from that first. So,
dude, it's like everyone nowadays wants to go on a retreat, and all these organizations want to fund these retreats, and that's fantastic. But that's not the best first step for everybody. In fact, I would say it's usually not the best first step is to just dive into a retreat. There's so much prep work that can and should be done. And to your point, if somebody's on psych meds, what are they going to do? Just come off them cold turkey to go sit with ibogaine or ayahuasca? Like, that's a terrible idea.
And that's,
So this sounds really
and
cool.
that's why I feel you introduced microdosing, because ADHD medications, it is nearly a one-for-one swap that you can microdose. If you have the right dosage with it, you can dial that in. Zoloft, Lexapro, was it cephalofan, Wellbutrin, all of those you can put an individual like on a 3-month program regimen of microdosing with coaching, where you properly get them ready to actually get them ready for the journey.
Oh yeah.
So that way, once they step into the journey, they've already done the upfront work rather than surprise.
Dude, that was part of why we did our microdosing program the way that we did it. Because back in the day, we were really focused on running ayahuasca retreats. We would do all the logistics, get the whole group together, do all the prep work, bring them down to the jungle, facilitate the ceremonies with our indigenous maestros, and do all the translation because the maestros don't speak English. And that's what we were doing for a while. And then, we had people who were like really wanted to come. They really needed the medicine, but they were on SSRIs or SNRIs or what have you. And so we would work with them for 3 months, 6 months to introduce microdosing and the coaching as you described, to come off the SSRI. And then now also you don't even need the SSRI the same way because now you have better tools to handle it. So you're not just going fucking crazy in the lead up to the ayahuasca retreat. And now you're processing as much as you can. Because I think that's a very different experience.
Very different.
If you show up to the medicine and you're like, hey, I have tried to untangle as many knots in my brain as I could. I picked a few a little bit looser, but there's still these handful of things. I just don't know what else to do about it. Can you please help me? As compared to, I just think this will help. Like, let's see what happens. Like, extremely different situation if you've done 3 months or 6 months of coaching and microdosing and this prep work and the shadow work and everything that we just spent the last hour and a half talking about. And cleaning up your diet and your physical movement and all that stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And then even afterwards, too, I think microdosing is like the perfect thing. And how we typically do is like, depending on the medication level, if they're working on coming down, we there's already a disclaimer. This is citizen science. We're not physicians. We understand that you need to talk to your physician about this. And, if they're on board with it, they're on board with it. But helping them at least get their hands on some well-sourced product that we're aware of manufacturers that produce it, but then guiding them into a step-by-step process that sets them up with the right intentions and the right mindset going into a ceremony. But then the unpacking process afterwards, having the microdose is a bit of like an anchor to keep them anchored into that space to be able to continue to fully process and get those sort of internal epiphanies and I call them downloads, but those illuminating moments.
Absolutely. All right, dude. We could continue this for another hour and a half, but we both got shit to go do today. Where can people check out more of your stuff? So I'll put some links to the Luminosity. I'll put some links to the Coming Home project. Yeah. What else do you have going on, or where else could people connect with you or find some more about this? Can people work with you in some way? Are you like taking on clients?
We're taking clients all the time, man. We've coached over 1,500 individuals at this point.
Damn, dude, I'm bragging about like 200 people going through our programs and all of my marketing right now.
Well, I mean, we just love it, man.
Rookie numbers.
You know, and I know you're joking, but it's not about numbers, but it's just when you're called to do something, you're called to do something. And I know that I'm very much called to do this. I feel so much love and honor, and I feel like I'm honoring my gift here in this lifetime through this work by doing it. And I have all the energy in the world for it, because I feel like I wish this was available when I was younger, and I want to make it available, at least the coaching piece of it. And the sourcing piece is easy. I can always point fingers and directions to go with that, but the actual coaching and holding space and hand holding, and Ram Dass was one of my teachers, and he has that famous saying, we're all walking each other home. but I really believe that,
Yep.
that we are walking each other home with loving awareness.
When you say Ram Dass was one of your teachers, as in you personally met him, or as in like you read his books and listen to his lectures? Because he's my teacher in
Yes,
that
that's what I
capacity
mean.
too,
I've
but did you
never met
actually know
him. My
Okay,
mom,
okay,
my
okay.
mom was actually a devotee. She did meet him and spent some
Cool.
time with him. Went to his lectures. But as far as me, I've read every one of his books and still continue to listen to his talks for the past decade. And I mean, he's a beloved. I have a picture on a wall of him, and like
Totally. Yep. I during one of my mushroom trips, man, I just had this big old picture of Ram Dass's face just like above me. And I don't know why, but I remember thinking like, dude, I bet Ram Dass has such bad body odor. Like while I was on mushrooms, I was thinking about that. And I was like, I would give him a big old hug anyway, dude.
and he's like
So much love for him.
loving awareness.
Yeah, dude, I've had, that's probably the only time this has ever happened to me where like I looked at a photo of somebody and cried one time just like thinking about Ram Dass, and not on any drugs even. Just perfectly sober, just thinking about him. Yeah, that was the foundation of me and my wife's relationship, actually. I think I've told this story a handful of times before, but we met at an ayahuasca retreat. And did I tell you all this when we first talked?
You mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, so the Ram Dass's book, Paths to God, I sent my wife that book after we met, and I was talking to her, and I was like, hey, what's your address? I want to send you a book, which is probably a really creepy message to send somebody when like you don't really know them. But yeah, I sent her that book, and I was like, I know if she likes the Bhagavad Gita, she'll like this. And then, of course, she's like, who the fuck is this guy from New Jersey sending me this book? Like, what is this? And then now we're married with a 2-year-old. So there you go. It's a good
Dance in the
strategy
house
for
music.
anyone out there looking to meet some ladies. Yeah, dude. And our daughter's name is Sita. I don't even know if I told you that. But yeah, we're considering further Vedic names for child number 2 when that happens. But yeah, Sita, she's the best. All right, man, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for doing this, dude. This was excellent.
Of course, David.
I'll put all the links and everything for people to reach out to you. This was awesome. Maybe we'll do round 2 and get even further into like the autoimmune stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
We'll let our listeners simmer with some questions for a while, and honestly, man, maybe just bring you into our community one of these days to do a little lecture, a little workshop on some of this stuff. I think that'd be
absolutely
really valuable.
Count me in. I'd love that. Absolutely.
Sweet. All right. Thank you,
brother.
buddy.
Thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for doing all you do, man, and for just raising the awareness to help other people. It means a lot.
All right, you guys, that's it for this round of the podcast. And I say that because I'm almost positive that me and David will do a round 2 at some point. I'm sure that we'll have him come into our community, our online community, and do a little workshop on this stuff for our clients. It's not really something that we talk much about, actually, but in addition to our mindful microdosing program, our Beyond the Uniform program, and our flow state retreats, we also have an entire online healing community where you can be supported by people just like you who are on this path, whether that involves plant medicine or not. So if you're looking to make some of these changes, David does his own coaching. So if you really vibe with him, just reach out directly to him. Or if you vibe with this David, reach out to me and let's get you onto this path. Thank you very much for being here. Until next time, peace out. Hare Krishna.